Crowhill here. Today we review a red ale and discuss apocalyptic religions. Hello and welcome to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Good evening, Pigweed.
Good evening, Crowhill.
What's on your mind today?
Got a nice pamphlet the other day.
Yeah?
Yes, a very a middle-aged couple, nicely dressed on a Saturday morning.
Right.
Came by and offered me a pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very nice. But they kept trying to convince me of how bad life on Earth is getting recently.
Okay.
And I'm going... I mean, there's certain aspects where I see the world going to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
But in all measurable terms, just about everything
is getting better all the time.
Getting better all. I mean, we're just looking at poverty and war, fairness, and justice, and whatever.
There are little things that we fuss about, but generally speaking, like the food is better and the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner.
Yeah, it took us all of human history to get to 1 billion people, and then like 80 years to
blink
get to
of an eye
7
later,
billion.
now we're at 7 billion.
It can't be because it's getting worse.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, so I got my little Watchtower pamphlet.
Watchtower, yes, I've heard of those boys.
Yes, and that is the Jehovah's Witness.
I've had my run in with those characters. Yes,
but then thinking back later, I'm going, now, were they Seventh-day Adventists or were they Jehovah's Witness? And I had to go and flip to the back side.
Well, there are some similarities.
Yes. So what and some differences?
Yes.
I just want to wonder, what are they?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a fair question. What's the difference between Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventists?
All right.
Okay.
And what's the difference between a pale ale and a red ale?
Yeah, color. I think.
Okay.
Well, it's one thing. Yeah. So this is Crimson Crue from Dogfish Head.
Yeah.
It's a red ale. It's 7.1%, so it's a little stiff.
Robust. It's a robust red.
A robust red. And, you add a little bit of darker malt to get that red color, and it's got a lovely red color. I like it. And I'm getting a very malty aroma from this beer. It's just...
you're not getting, speaking of differences between pale ales, it's not hop forward.
No, not hop forward. I'm getting a very malty forward smell.
There's something about that malt.
Yeah, it's like, is that a lot of crystal malt or something? What is that? That's a very interesting
I don't know.
flavor.
I don't think they give away a lot of details in their...
No, unfortunately not.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Well,
interesting.
It is, I like this style because the last time we had a red ale from the local brewers, whoever that was. Mm-hmm. So it's both. You get it's malt forward and hop forward. It's one of those.
The other one, yeah. And this one is it's stronger. Yeah. It's definitely, you feel that 7%, and it's got a good solid malty backbone to it. I like it.
I've never seen it before. I don't know where.
I was out. I was out in a different part of town because I was going to do something, and I figured, well, maybe they got a different selection down here. So I stopped by, and sure enough, they had.
You can't never go wrong with the Dogfish Head.
I know Dogfish Head isn't gonna turn you wrong. So Jehovah's Witness and Seventh-day Adventists.
Yes.
Do they have some sort of common origin?
Right. So if you back it up.
Yeah.
Turns out disappointment. They're rooted in disappointment.
Both of them. And so there's that in common, and there's also, they both come out of the late 19th century, and there was a lot of weird religious stuff going on at that time. The Mormons come out of that same kind of time period, and
geographical location.
Yeah,
they're upstate New York.
Yeah,
and William Miller. Now, all right, I'm going to back it up a couple thousand years. The emphasis on end times seems to peak and subside, right?
Yes.
There are certain periods where people aren't really thinking about the coming of Christ and the end. The book of Revelation isn't that important.
Apparently, around the year 1000, people were really concerned.
Okay.
And there was a lot of the end of the world was coming.
Because they thought that the computers were going to reset.
That
was 2000.
That was 2000.
Okay.
Right. And then there was also a lot of end times talk around the time of the Reformation. But you're right, it ebbs and flows. It's like at certain times people feel like
let's pay more attention to the coming of Christ. There's something a little bit what would I say? Almost narcissistic in the idea that the most significant event in all of human history is going to happen in my lifetime.
Yeah, it is a little narcissistic. So if you take it from the perspective of a Jehovah's Witness or a Seventh-day Adventist who both believe in literal 6-day creationism, the earth is still, 6,500 years old.
All right. Well, let's do. So we're talking about William Miller.
But I'm just addressing your narcissism thing. Even if you're taking this short time frame, you're right that there's just out of all the people who lived in all the world, I'm in the time.
Right. And if you look at the Bible properly, you'll notice that my lifetime window happens to fall.
Yeah.
But that is how they get there, right? They're like, if the earth is 6,000 years old, and then Daniel 3:75 says, right? I mean, there's all kinds of math going on here where William Miller, and whatever's going on in upstate New York says, all right, we don't need to just focus on, bettering ourselves because God wants us that way so we can get into heaven. This is the big one.
Yeah.
And we've run the numbers and we've done the math and
everybody needs to listen to me because I have the answer.
Imagine how special you are that you and that just so happens that in your adult lifetime it's all going to line up.
Right. Yeah. There's a certain amount of narcissism to that.
And so what did they call so he didn't nail it down exactly, but he did say between March 1843 and March 1844. So he didn't give us a date.
Yeah.
A day.
And there are these various calculations people tried to make mostly from prophecies of Daniel, where Daniel would say, 70 weeks have been decreed for the city, and what they do is they turn the days into years, and they do other kinds of little fussing around with the numbers to try to come up with these dates. And it's a common thing in interpretation of prophecy for people to try to take these specific numbers. They'll say the 70 weeks of Daniel is a common one in the book of Daniel. And
but they'll nail it down. They're like, all right, that means it's from the date of the flood.
Yeah.
And so the flood was this date. So 4,000 years before.
Well, the 70 weeks of Daniel is actually from the rebuilding of the temple. So, but they come up with the rebuilding of the temple, and then they add a bunch of years, and they say that comes to this, and then. So
right. When he said days, he meant years.
These various kind of numerology to come up with dates, and it wasn't that long ago where there was a popular radio preacher who came up with. What was it, 1987 or something? Or
No. Well, Harold Camping.
Harold Camping.
Harold Camping was
1991.
No, more recent than that. It was like 2011.
Okay, but so Harold Camping came up with his own numerology and came up with a date for the end.
And how much disappointment can you people handle?
I know,
and keep going, and not just give up on the whole darn thing.
It's wrong, and then they make a revision, and it's wrong again. They make a revision, it's wrong again, and
All right, so
it's kind of like global warming,
Yes, we only have 4 years to live. I meant 9.
I meant 9. Yeah, no, I meant 12.
Yes. So 1844 came and went. The Great Disappointment. Well, that's really says it there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
and the funny thing is, it was during the Second Great Awakening that they had the Great Disappointment.
So which was like a revivalism.
Yeah.
So there's which is churching going on away from. It's like the traveling tents.
There was a lot of that sort of thing. Both of the Great Awakenings, First and Second Great Awakenings, were typically associated with revivalism, and they would have tent meetings and that sort of stuff. But it was,
a rejection of the current established churches.
Often, yeah. It was not in the churches. It was something outside. It was people saying the churches were corrupt and we needed a new this and a new that and that sort of thing. So, there was this big religious ferment going on in that time, and a lot of things came out of it. You had Mormonism, and you had Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventists and a lot of other little sects. And you also just had sort of generic spiritualism going on at that time.
Right. And you're right, because there was a lot of like seances became a real big thing, and communicating with your ancestors.
Right.
That was a big deal, and also linked to the same region of the country, also upstate New York.
All upstate New York, and I wonder why. Because I mean, this is around the time of the Civil War, roughly speaking. So, I wonder if that was part of it, kind of the being faced with this awful conflict where millions of people were getting killed. Not millions, but lots and lots of people were getting killed.
But we're not talking about Southern Baptists. This is it's a kind of a northern thing. So you got the Great Disappointment.
Yeah.
And then out of the Great Disappointment, you get two branches who are still... They weren't disappointed enough. They were disappointed enough to get, to say, all right, that didn't work.
To revise their predictions, yeah, right. Jehovah's Witnesses are famous for, they had lots and lots of predictions. They predicted a second coming and a second coming, over and over and over again. And then eventually they just said, well, Jesus really returned, but it was a spiritual return, or something, that.
Right. Yeah, he was here, but he was invisible.
Yeah, and the Seventh-day Adventists do a trick sort of like that, where they say, well, those dates actually it was true, but it was only true in the heavenly realm or some other kind of sleight of hand.
Right. And people sticking around, is it because you've already, is it what do they call it? Lost cause fallacy? The lost...
So the sunk cost fallacy.
Yes. It's like, all right, I'm already in so far. I can't just bail all the way out.
Yeah.
I can just say, all right, I was almost right, but not 100% right. So all it needs is some tweaking. And so you had... Are you going to do the Miller still stayed on with the Adventists or with the Jehovah's?
I can't keep it all straight because I think Miller was with both of them at one time or another. Charles Taze Russell is usually considered the guy who started the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think Miller started off with the Jehovah's Witnesses and then moved over to the Seventh-day Adventists or something like that.
So I've got Taze, 1872, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Also, right. So the name was the Bible. It was like the International Bible Students Association.
That's originally what they were called.
The JWs didn't come along.
They were called
later.
Bible students. Yeah, at the time, right? They weren't Jehovah's Witnesses until 1931.
Okay, so this is a long time. So the Witnesses, millennialist group. A lot of apocalyptic, right? Daniel and the Book of Revelation is what they're focusing on mostly.
Right. Yeah,
and
then you also have this character called Ellen G. White. Have you heard of her?
Yes.
She was associated with the Seventh-day Adventists, and she was a prophetess. And here's something that's a little bit odd. Generally speaking, Christian denominations believe that prophecy was pretty much done with after the close of the New Testament. But with I looked up the 28 fundamental beliefs of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and one of them is that they believe in the gift of prophecy, and this gift was manifested in the ministry of Ellen G. White, whose writings are a continuing and authoritative source of truth.
Well, there you go.
Never mind that she borrowed a lot of her writings from Joseph Smith, apparently.
Well, and Joseph and the Mormons have continuous prophecy.
Right, that's
also.
right. Yes. Yeah, so you want to go through maybe some things that, like, why would you confuse Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventists? We've talked, one of them is that they both originate around the same time and with some of the same characters, with William Miller and some of that stuff.
Yes, and they're very concerned with end of times.
Yes,
so
exactly.
There's that.
Yes.
There's also a sort of a lack of real hierarchy.
Yes.
Right?
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses have some sort of what is it? There's some group, the Watchtower organization. There's some small group that controls everything. I think the Seventh-day Adventists are a little more dispersed in their governance than the Jehovah's Witnesses are.
Yeah, and in fact, which one? The Seventh Day?
The Seventh-day Adventists are more Presbyterian, and they're more dispersed in their governance, and the Jehovah's Witnesses have like this one group of people who kind of call the shots and say what. But one thing that's common between them, okay, so here's a few things. They have founders in common. They're both monotheists. They both have an obsession with Revelation, prophecy, the end of the world, Book of Daniel. They both have a slightly odd view of hell.
True.
Jehovah's Witnesses say hell is just the grave. At death, you just die. Now here's the funny thing. You might be resurrected in a new body, if you're lucky, if you're one of the lucky few. But at death, you're gone. And then Seventh-day Adventists have something slightly similar in that at death, you are unaware. You sleep. Like there's no continuation of consciousness or the soul until the resurrection.
Until the second coming.
Right.
And then but for the JWs, and then, do you want to get into 144 yet? Or,
oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
So when the second coming comes, and you've just been sort of lulled, waiting for it, you're not in hell, you come up to a paradise on earth, but you don't go to heaven.
Yeah. Only 144,000 go
which
to
is
heaven.
A very specific number
which
from
is from the
Revelation.
Book of Revelation. That's right. Yeah, and it's kind of stupid to take it as a literal number because 144,000 is obviously a multiple of 12s, right?
Okay.
So, and you have the 12 tribes of Israel, and you have the 12 apostles. So 144,000 is a symbolic number. But anyway, they take it.
Back in a time when there's only a couple 100,000 followers at the time.
That's right.
So now that you've had 2,000 years and
it's kind of a bad sales pitch. Like nowadays, if you want to join JWs, and they're like, no, you're not going to be in the 144,000, but maybe you'll be one of the guys who will, be in the other company, the other sheep.
But you would still live on an earthly paradise,
right? Yeah. Which
so
nice,
it's not all together. Now is that so? What about like cremation? So do you have to have your body in a grave to be resurrected? To come out of,
I don't know that.
Can you come out of an urn?
I don't know if I didn't look into their positions on.
I never
cremation.
didn't come across it, but it seems like if your position is there's no hell, you're just sort of laying around the grave urns. Do you need a physical? Do you need some bones?
Yeah. So both of these groups, JWs and Seventh-day Adventists, have some of the marks of cultishness, and those marks generally are things like this. They tend to live within their own community and don't have much dealings with people outside. Mm-hmm. They're obsessed with getting new members. If somebody leaves the group, they shun them.
Yes.
They won't have anything to do with them. Generally speaking, their beliefs are outside of mainstream beliefs. Typically they have odd views of authority, and they typically also have extra revelation, something in addition to the Bible that they add as a rule of authority. It might just be a charismatic leader, or it might be like this, Ellen G. White writings and that sort of thing.
Right, but currently, I think what's a little less culty is the lack of the authoritative figure, which I associate
on
with
the Seventh-day Adventist side. That's true. I think the JW side does have a little bit more. They don't have like the one big charismatic guy, but I'm pretty sure they have like this little council, the Watchtower Council or whatever. That's right. But on the Seventh-day Adventist side, I think it's true. That's a fair point that they don't seem to have the big authoritative leader like you have in some other
Doesn't mean it isn't culty. I'm just saying.
Just right. On that narrow area. That's right. So they have a lot in common in terms of their origins and in terms of some of their beliefs, but they have some distinctions.
Pacifism.
Yes.
That's for both?
Well, Seventh-day Adventists will serve. They prefer to be in non-combatant roles.
I see. So you're a nurse or something.
Right. Yeah. And actually that show, what was that movie? Hacksaw Ridge.
He was a
Seventh-day Adventist. Yeah.
Now, all right. So, Advent. The word Advent.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Coming. So like the Advent, the time before Christmas, is the coming of Christ.
Oh, okay. Yes, because I mean, you hear that in a very normal, non-weird, culty way.
Yeah.
Advent. So they, I say, they have adopted that as part of our essential part of our belief system is all about the second coming.
So well, look at it.
What's the seventh day? Yeah, what is the seventh day?
So they observe Saturday instead of Sunday. So the Seventh-day Adventists believe that the Sabbath, the seventh-day Sabbath, is eternal. So Christians generally believe that the Sabbath moved from Saturday to Sunday because Jesus rose on a Sunday, and there's a bunch of New Testament evidence for.
How about isn't the Genesis creation? Isn't that resting on
Saturday?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because the first day of the week is Sunday. So the Old Testament Sabbath is Saturday. So that becomes a big.
Well, that's a pretty solid argument.
Yeah. So it is a big point of contention among a bunch of different Christians about, where is the Sabbath? Do Christians even have to observe any kind of Sabbath at all? There's a lot of that. So the Seventh-day Adventists would say that the Sabbath, the Saturday Sabbath, is an eternal obligation. It's part of the Ten Commandments, and they would say the Ten Commandments are the moral law. So you observe Saturday. So Seventh-day Adventists, they have the Saturday Sabbath, and they are looking for the return of Christ. So that's where you get the name.
But the Jehovah's Witness, the changing of the name, and the emphasis on Daniel makes it sound like it's more of an Old Testament religion than a New Testament religion. And so are these considered Christian?
Yeah, so that's a good point. It's a good question. Like, where do you draw the line between Christian and non-Christian? Because generally speaking, people would say, well, if you're into Jesus, you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of people draw the line at the Trinity. If you believe the Trinity, you're a Christian. If you don't believe, so
okay. Well, let's do this. Let's do the Trinity because I got some things to say.
Yeah. So the Seventh-day Adventists are Trinitarians. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not. Okay. They believe that Christ is a created being. Mormons are not Trinitarians. So from that perspective, Seventh-day Adventists would be Christians. Jehovah's Witnesses would not. Mormons would not.
All right. Let me confess my sympathies here. I kind of get the idea of God as the founder, owner, and CEO of the world, and Jesus is, designated CFO, and the Holy Spirit is human resources or something, right? That yes, that there's a hierarchy with God as above everything else. That's what more of an Aryan.
Yeah, that's more of an Aryan kind of
position. Right? And that's what you have going on here a little bit.
So the Jehovah's Witnesses would say that Christ is a created being. They would say that he's Michael the Archangel. They would say that he's the Son of God, but he's not God Almighty.
Yeah. I've always sympathized with that. Also sympathized with the Anabaptists over the Baptists, but we don't need to go there just now. But,
okay, so the Seventh-day Adventists are Trinitarians. They believe that Christ is the second person of the Trinity, fully God and fully man. They both believe that Christ's sacrificial death is important for salvation.
Okay.
I know a little bit more about the Adventist position than the Jehovah's Witnesses position because the Jehovah's Witnesses call it a ransom sacrifice. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. It's a little bit goofy. In terms of bodily resurrection, Jehovah's Witnesses say the body goes away, it's dissolved, but you're resurrected with a spirit body. And the Seventh-day Adventists say that you're resurrected with a body. Now, one of the things that's kind of important here is the idea of being resurrected in a body, that, Christ died, rose again in a body, ascended into heaven in a body. So this idea of kind of the salvation of the body is an important Christian principle. So there's a lot of weirdness going on with
right.
with that kind of stuff. The Sabbath, the Jehovah's Witnesses meet on Sundays, but they don't really have a Sabbath. Seventh-day Adventists have a Saturday Sabbath.
Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses have a kingdom hall,
Yes.
not a church.
Yeah.
And what about the Seventh Day? What do they have?
They have churches.
They have regular churches. Where is the international headquarters?
Good question.
Silver Spring, Maryland.
Is it?
Yes.
Really?
Isn't that nuts?
Yes.
And Jehovah's is in Brooklyn.
Okay.
But Silver Spring, Maryland.
Silver Spring, Maryland. Okay. Didn't know that.
All right.
Yeah. So communion, which is obviously a big part of Christianity, the Jehovah's Witnesses have an annual memorial of Christ's death, but only the anointed may participate. It's a little weird. They do use wine. Most people, who are called the other sheep or the great crowd, can't participate in this annual celebration of Christ's death. The Adventists do a quarterly celebration. Now and they use grape juice, they don't use wine. But here's something that's kind of odd. From a biblical perspective, you could argue for doing communion every day. You could argue for doing communion once a week.
Okay.
Or you could argue for doing communion once a year. Okay. So
well, the Episcopal Church was once a month.
I know.
It was like the fourth Sundays is your communion Sunday.
Yeah, it's so weird because biblically you could say, okay, it's like Passover, so it's once a year. Or you could say it's on the Lord's Day celebration, it's every Sunday. That makes sense. You could say it's like the sacrifices in the temple, it's an everyday thing. Any one of those makes sense biblically. But so many denominations do it either monthly or quarterly. It's like, there's absolutely, where'd you get that from?
That has the least foundation.
The least foundation of anything, but that's what the Adventists do. So they both believe in the return of Jesus, although the Jehovah's Witnesses had multiple predictions about this, and there's all kinds of weird stuff going on about spiritual return and all that.
All Christian denominations do, right? You just emphasize it to more and less.
Yes.
Does the Catholic Church talk about the Book of Revelation much?
Well, I mean, it's read in the Mass, and it's part of the Bible, and they talk about it from time to time, but it's certainly not.
But there's never any talk about some imminent event.
It's
off in the future.
Not a lot of that kind of thing.
All right.
Dietary rules. The Adventists are well known for having strict rules about what they eat.
Yeah. That especially who's that first lady there?
Ellen G. White.
Yeah, she was big into diet and dietary restriction.
And the Jehovah's Witnesses are well known for their refusal of blood transfusions.
That's your one big thing.
I know.
Anesthesia and all the other medical, modern medical techniques, antibiotics, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're really stuck on that blood transfusion
they
thing,
are.
aren't they?
They say it's like eating blood, which is outlawed in the Old Testament. So anyway, prophetic guidance. This is interesting. The Jehovah's Witnesses reject modern prophecy, but the Seventh-day Adventists believe that Ellen G. White is a modern-day prophet. So there is this
Is that
idea.
what the cutoff is? I was like, all right.
Is it just her? I don't know. Anybody else? And then the afterlife. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in an immortal soul. The Seventh-day Adventists would say the soul sleeps until the resurrection. I don't know.
All right, so I mean, that gives you a little bit. I mean, in terms of salesmanship, you got something going on here. What are the Jehovah's telling you about? Why you should join our religion?
I know it's kind of hard because you're not part of the 144. You don't have an immortal soul. You might be resurrected or resurrected into some earthly paradise or something. I don't know. It's
for the 1,000-year reign.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem very compelling, does it? I'm not sure exactly what the sales point is on the Jehovah's Witness side. It seems a little rough.
Okay, no, I'll wait till we get that down here. All right, go ahead. What else do we have here? So afterlife. Sort of the vague organization. Right, the lack of serious hierarchy
on the Seventh-day Adventist side. Yes, the Jehovah's Witnesses do have the Watchtower organization. The Jehovah's Witnesses are the ones who are going to come door to door. The Seventh-day
You're gonna get
Adventists,
the
I've never had a Seventh-day Adventist come to my house door to door. I've had plenty of Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house. They have, by the way, both of these groups believe they take the Bible to be inspired and infallible. But the Jehovah's Witnesses have their own translation, which is, by the way, an awful translation.
Okay.
And I'm not a Greek expert, but I know enough Greek to know that their translation is terrible. And they break a lot of rules of Greek grammar and other kinds of things. So they have their own translation to support their own doctrines, basically.
Yeah, well, that's a little shaky.
Well, and that's not surprising either. And then, so politically, both of them, a lot of times people will ask you about Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, whatever. And my reaction generally is good neighbor, bad Sunday school teacher. It's like, they're fine people. They just have some kind of nutty views on a few things. I would ascribe nutty more to Jehovah's Witnesses than to Seventh-day Adventists personally. But
so is there a clergy? So when you go, you're going to Kingdom Hall,
right?
Somebody
stands up front.
Somebody stands up front,
right?
Yes, like Quakers, right?
Yeah.
You can't have nobody in charge, but you don't. But still, a lot of authority in that guy who's leading the Saturday service.
Yeah, it's a good question. I know there are pastors in the Seventh-day Adventists. I really don't know the internal structure at the Kingdom Hall. Like do they have elders? Do they have deacons? I don't know what they're.
Yeah, I know why. And the reason that you don't know is because there's no windows in any of those things. Who knows what's going on in there?
It's a secret place. They're sacrificing chickens and stuff. Yeah. The other thing that's a little weird about Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't celebrate birthdays, Christmas, Easter, or other holidays.
What?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I know, it's a little rough on the kids. No, you don't get a birthday. All the other kids get birthdays, but you don't get a birthday.
Right. Yeah, and you've got some elementary school where they kind of make, they bring out cupcakes, and then your mom comes in and goes, by the way,
we don't do that.
His birthday's tomorrow. No cupcakes. Really?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of rough on the kids.
Yeah, and I think they're just literalists about Christ's birthday.
Well, actually, I think the only biblical justification I can think for it is the only time in the Bible that I can think of a birthday being celebrated was when Herod had John the Baptist's head delivered to him on his birthday. So that might be what turned him off the birthdays.
That is a little bit of a downer, but
yeah.
And you can all acknowledge that we don't know the exact date.
Yeah.
But we're just going to pick a date because we want to celebrate the coming of the Christ, and so somehow the 25th. Okay, well, just get on board with that, and don't get all caught up in the fact that we don't know. Don't get too worried about it that we
don't know exactly what that is. Cool. I think it's interesting to think about the famous people in the two different groups.
All right, who you got?
So more on the JW side, Prince, Serena and Venus Williams,
right.
Michael Jackson.
Does that include the whole Jackson family?
I guess. Yeah. George Benson,
right.
The Wyans family, Naomi Campbell. That's a lot of Seventh-day Adventists, well-known Seventh-day. That's on the JW
that's
side.
That's on the JW side.
On the Seventh-day Adventist side, Ben Carson.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah, Gentle Ben. Ben Carson, Seventh-day. Desmond Doss, who's the Hacksaw Ridge guy we talked about.
Right, but Ben, he's got to be on that side because Ben is for blood transfusions. He's a cardiologist.
That's right.
I think he's okay with the blood transfusions.
Probably okay with the blood transfusions. And then Little Richard. And there's also a chaplain of the Senate who is a Seventh-day Adventist.
All right, I got a little quiz for you.
Okay.
How about contraception?
Ooh, gosh. I think they're both okay with it.
Yes, very good. They're both okay with it. How about alcohol?
So Seventh-day Adventists against Jehovah's Witnesses, I think maybe not committed.
Yeah, don't get hammered, but I think they're okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, now we've covered that. What about when does a fetus become human?
Oh, wow.
I guess that's an abortion question.
Yes. I would say Seventh-day Adventists are... Actually, I would think both of them would be point of conception.
Both are conception.
Okay, right.
Ding, ding, ding. Let's see. Are we guilty of Adam's original sin?
Oh, that's a great one. Wow. Are we guilty of... So I would say yes for the Seventh-day Adventists, no for the Jehovah's Witnesses.
I actually have 2 no's, but it looks like the wording is slightly different. Not that different. We did inherit the consequences and corrupt human nature. So if you ask about man's human nature, we're going to go with 2
no's on that one?
2 corrupts.
Okay. Yeah. There's a difference between saying that you inherited a corrupt nature from Adam's sin and saying that you're guilty, actually guilty for Adam. There'd be a distinction between those 2 statements, but yeah.
When does one receive the Holy Spirit?
Wow. Yeah, those are some inside baseball things that I don't really know about these guys.
So I've got the 7th day. Holy Spirit is received at baptism.
Okay.
And Jehovah's Holy Spirit is received after one prays for it, learns God's word, and lives in line with it. So this is like the day when you become a Jehovah's Witness. Then that they sometimes will celebrate that as your birthday.
I
remember seeing that
spiritual
somewhere.
birthday.
Yes,
Yeah.
because. But how about can one lose his salvation?
I would probably say yes on JWs and no on Seventh-day Adventists.
I got yes by apostasy. So that's one of the, and I don't think they mean turning your back on God. I think they mean turning your back on
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Which is a culty kind of keep you in the fold element here. Do the elements of communion become the body and blood of Christ?
No for both of them.
2 no's. Yeah. Yes. Let me see. I gotta look up more quizzes for you. Did Mary ever sin?
I would say yes to both of them.
Good call. Yeah, I got 2 yeses here. What day of the week? Yeah. So, this one's interesting. It has Jehovah's Witness. It says, meet on any 2 days of the week, while the 7th day is straight up Saturday.
Yeah, well, it's common for churches, like Baptist churches, will frequently have services on Sunday and then like a prayer service on Wednesday night.
Okay.
Yeah, so that kind of thing, a second service in the week isn't uncommon.
How was the earth created?
How? Well, I think they both believe in 6-day creation.
Well, somehow Jehovah's have brought in the Big Bang over here. The earth was formed by gravity pulling dust together.
What?
Which ultimately came the Big Bang, while the 7th day has a straight up, God's spoken word. And
I didn't know JWs were that way. I know Seventh-day Adventists are strict 6-day creationists, but I thought Jehovah's Witnesses were, but I guess not.
All right. How about when is divorce possible?
So I would say for Seventh-day Adventists, it would probably be in the cases of infidelity or desertion, and probably the same for both.
Yeah. Well, this Jehovah's doesn't have desertion. You've got adultery, desertion, and adultery. What do I mean by desertion? They just leave town.
Well, the idea that your wife leaves you and she's just gone. She's run off with some other man or something like that. Then that would be grounds for divorce.
Yeah. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I have for the 7th day, Christians fight in wars. Yeah, like you said, that varies widely. Mm-hmm. And then I think, so do you get a full blown exemption? Were no Jehovah's Witness drafted during the Vietnam War?
Yeah, so I'm not sure, because I know that in order to get a religious exemption from combat service, you have to be part of a church that has a tradition of pacifism. Like if you're Amish or something, that you're good because
Right.
there's a clear tradition of pacifism.
I see.
But in churches that don't have a straightforward doctrine of being pacifist, I'm not sure that they get a religious exemption just because they want to. Somebody comes in, I'm against war because you've got to be part of a church that has a very clear statement on that.
I see. So you're ready to say, well, because my church doesn't allow it. We're churches. Well, the Church of Bill and Mary.
Yeah, exactly.
Down the street.
And okay,
yeah.
show me the book. Show me their doctrine book that says this. Yeah.
How about Scientologists? Do they
Ooh,
have to,
yeah.
Well, they've been defunct or whatever. They've been de-religiousized, right?
They're sort of a psychology cult more than a religion.
Yes,
in a lot of
but I
ways.
think they had sort of religious tax exemption at some point,
and
that they no longer have.
Oh, well, good for them. Yeah. Okay, so here's a
Probably not good for them. Good
well,
for us.
No, good for us. Good for us. Yeah. So
Hey, put that on the list. So we got to do a Scientology.
we have to do a Scientology show. So here's my question to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
So generally speaking, we're pro religion in society. Generally speaking, religion is an important, good thing to have in society. How do you apply that to these two groups?
Wow.
Because just because religion in general is a good thing doesn't mean that every religion is a good thing.
No. And yes, we discussed about the importance of Christianity to the foundation of Western civilization, how it's waning is not good for Western civilization. So, we're pro-organized religion in that sense. Well, I just think it starts to get leaning a little culty.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say Seventh-day Adventist. I'd give them a little more credit than the JWs because I've spoken with a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses in my life, and my personal experience is they are the most dishonest people I've ever spoken to.
So, all right, let's think of things like, you're getting ready to hire somebody, or they're in your neighborhood, and your kids are close friends with their kids.
Right.
Would you be more suspicious of one than the other in both cases?
Yes, I'd be more suspicious of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
The Seventh-day Adventists, they've got some views that I don't agree with, but generally speaking, that's fine. I think they're Christians and they have different views on things. Okay, Jehovah's Witnesses are just weird.
Okay, well, all right. Let's throw the Mormons in there. Now you give me a hierarchy.
Okay, yeah. So the Mormons, nice people, but gosh, do they have weird beliefs? Very strange, kooky beliefs. Yeah. So good citizens, good neighbors, but
employees. So you put them. So in the hierarchy, I take it the Jehovah's Witnesses are on the bottom. Are you wedging them in between the Mormons?
Yeah. I'm probably putting the Mormons between the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, I hope we've cleared that all up.
Exactly, and in the Crow Hill division of denominational distinctives.
There we have it.
Judging everything. There we go. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crow Hill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.